In the early 90s, tens of intelligence officers died of HIV/AIDS. A good number of them were my personal friends. I do not know the exact number, but I think it is within the tens. I have had people commenting on my videos, and although some people use pseudo accounts, but you can see the way the person is reasoning, you understand that this is somebody who knows you well, and this is somebody you are with together. But when you try to zero in on him, it becomes hard, because some of these things it is not just 5 or less people who know it. So one of them wrote to me encouraging me to highlight the 10th of intelligence officers who died in the mid-90s of HIV/AIDS and the way they died. At times it is good to transfer yourself from today to that period. Today, it is easier for somebody to voluntarily tell you that I am HIV positive or I am AIDS whatever. Those days, it was a bit hard. Nowadays, the medication is so good that unless the person who is HIV positive or having AIDS tells you, nowadays it becomes a bit difficult to conclude just by seeing that this person has HIV/AIDS. Those days, it was a stigma. The person with HIV/AIDS, some of them even died. I know of a general duty, you call it regular, a general duty police corporal, who before dying insisted on tracing his bloodline, and he tried to visit as many people as possible to say farewell. And the thing he used to say in vernacular, "Vamadre," this is, "they have finished me." When he died, everybody interpreted "they have finished me" to mean he had been bewitched. But also, getting HIV/AIDS those days, it meant that they have finished you. But nowadays, I find that it is hard to trace the person, and even the people just tell you. Those days, I remember visiting somebody who was rumored, but later came to die of AIDS. And I arrived at her place. She was married into the Huatenge family. She was married to one of my cousins, and she was a non-Luhya. I visited her. It was lunchtime, and I was passing through, going to another place. So I decided it's lunchtime, and my sister-in-law, that is a town that is around 40 or 50 kilometers from home. So I passed through her to say hi and also to have lunch at her place. She prepared lunch, we ate. I told her I'm passing through here for lunch, and I'm also going to such and such a place for this and that mission. We had a good lunch. I left her, asked her if she had any comments for home. She gave me comments, and comments included money for her father-in-law, for her mother-in-law. Her father-in-law was not alive then, he was already dead. So she was giving me money for her mother-in-law. Then while I left her place, and as I was in the office that I was waiting to be attended to, I remembered the rumors. I nearly puked. Of course, she developed full-blown AIDS and died. Of those intelligence officers I'm talking about, the 10s, all of them, when they went to die, they were skeletons. They were skeletons. You could even count the ribs. And one thing I used to notice, because nowadays you don't notice, because they are drugs and whatever, you'd find somebody looking tired, somebody looking withered and whatever. You talk a lot and you, ama nimeongea sana. Says, hapana, ongea. And those people used to have, it was very easy to annoy them. So that is how tens of our intelligence officers died. They would have died like anybody else, but their death is unique. And that is why I've talked of death of intelligence officers and not all others. Somebody a few days ago asked me to record about the training and recruitment of intelligence officers. Intelligence officers, the training is the tip of iceberg. An intelligence officer has got to be intelligent. An intelligence officer has got to be up to date in current affairs. An intelligence officer is somebody who is supposed to naturally keep long stories in the head, so that a day, a week, or even a month, when he finds time and sits down, he can write a detailed report where you'd think that nowadays people take selfies and whatever. You'd think that he recorded that with an audio or a video, but he has done that. If you have those capabilities, the training is only to realign you. That is intelligence officer. And if you have very good intelligence officer and you find that there are tens of them who are going, you try to assist. Those days, ensuring medical insurance for HIV/AIDS was very high. I do not rule out the possibility that the then assistant director of administration at Nyati House may have, in Kenya is a funny country. You can come up with a very good idea and people say, this fellow brought this idea. For example, there's a school in your locality, you say electricity should be brought from this direction. People will praise you, but later it will be discovered that you wanted the electricity to come from the main wire through your home to school. Now you did it because you wanted your house to have electricity, but covered yourself as a school. This I'm also talking about the director of intelligence, the assistant director of administration in Nyati House, whom I've forgotten. When he applied for medical scheme for HIV positive intelligence officers, he did a very good thing, we must say. And he really assisted those intelligence officers, because having ARVs of those days, nowadays, there are just many. It is only the rich people who could afford that, and the people who were heavily insured. So he insured those people, and then he retired. 1993-1994, Benson Okemwa was the provincial security intelligence officer in Rift Valley. He was promoted to assistant director in charge of administration, Nyati House. And when he arrived there, well, whether the changes he made affected other contracts and whatever, I do not know. But what I know is he went to the insurance company where they had signed, the insurance company was to cover those intelligence officers who had contracted HIV/AIDS. He went and saw them and told them, this contract is so much. Can you give me 10% of the amount? They told him, your predecessor had already collected 10%. We took a check worth so much. So what we got was 90% of the fee of the check, because 10% we gave to your predecessor. He told them, if you don't give me the 10%, I am going to cancel the cover. They told, of course, salesmen, every company has salesmen and sales ladies. They tried to convince him, but he was adamant. Then he went looking for another similar insurance, medical insurance company. He found it, and they agreed to take over the insurance. So he went to the first company and said, can you refund the money? These people refunded 90% of what they got. Of course, plus some deduction. But if you go into major detail, maybe if you have the file is when you'll know it. But let us put it this way, because he went to see them a few months after the contract had been signed. So the value of the cover went down. You see, if it's a 12 months cover, if you go there after 6 months, it is maybe halfway. So he went there. Let us assume it is a full cover. He was given a check of 90%, and he was told if he wanted the 10%, he should go after the former occupier of that office to refund that money. Of course, he could not go to that person because he knew one day he will retire and the occupier of that seat will harass him even more. So he went with that check, which is 90% of the allocated amount, and took it to the second insurance company. Second insurance company gave him 9% and retained 81% of the initial amount. Now this second company is getting 81% of the initial amount, the money allocated by the government. It was getting 81%, and it was getting late. And because of the change, you may have seen with NHIF that when a company is removed, then clearing their checks and whatever, it takes time and whatever. And I don't know about any ARVs of today, but what I know is that those days, people used to be told not to stop taking the ARVs, because if you stop for some time, the restarting would also be problematic. And we used to have this problem, especially people who used to visit Waganga. Also people who undertook things like Pal Omega. They stopped taking ARVs, and later when the symptoms started, they would restart, and it would really give them a hard time. And it is because of the undervaluing of the insurance and late restarting of taking drugs again that cost our officers their lives. Thank you.